So let's talk a little bit about frogging. Whenever I'm frogging in vegetation like this, it's kind of standing grass, gator grass, a little taller stuff. I like to scoot a frog along. I don't really like to walk it as much. You hear a lot of guys talking about walking a frog, and that's a really important technique, and it's an important part of frogging, but it's not the whole deal. You only really want to walk a frog whenever you're around targets, say if you're fishing laydowns or around stumps or skipping it under bushes. You kind of want to walk a frog, but a lot of the rest of the time I'll just scoot a frog along. And if you've ever seen a frog in nature, that's what you'll see a frog do, is it just scoots along. It just kind of keeps his legs going. It goes in a straight line, doesn't get the whole side-to-side deal. It just kind of scoots along, and if you can match that with your presentation with your frog, I think you get a lot more bites, and it covers a lot more water. I mean, you got the ability to go down a long grass line a lot easier than you do whenever you're just kind of walking it along. Like I said, that's kind of more of a target type deal, and I will incorporate it some into this kind of fishing too here. Whenever you're coming to a hard edge or you're about to leave a hard edge, as soon as you hit the open water, if you got a small hole over in grass or in lily pads, I like to kind of walk it in that situation because it gives a fish a couple more seconds to find it whenever they have that small strike zone. But typically, whenever you're just going down a grass line like this, if you just walked a frog the whole time, it would take entirely too long to fish it. I think we get a little bent out of shape sometimes trying to help a fish. A fish doesn't need our help. I mean, a fish can catch a frog. A fish is a lot faster than a frog. That's why fish survive and frogs die. You don't have to really help a fish catch a frog. Unless you have a fish come up and say boil on your frog, then I'll walk it a little bit, try to get him to bite it. And if it doesn't, I'll reel it in and fire it back up there and walk it in that same spot. Anytime you know a fish is in an exact area and you're trying to catch him, yeah, walking a frog is a really good, big part of it. But typically in this open grass type stuff, whenever you're just going down grass lines, if you scoot it along, you'll cover a lot more water, and I think you'll catch a lot more fish.
There's what's going on old KVD frog. That's a pretty one too. Pretty fish. Healthy. That's a good one.
So let's talk tackle. You know, you can fish a frog a million different ways. You can fish on like Lake Gunnersville and matted hydrilla. Whenever you're fishing a frog in that situation, you got to have a heavy rod, a 710 extra heavy, a big reel, heavy lines, 80-pound braid sometimes. When you're fishing around docks, bushes, or what have you, you can kind of skip a frog better with a 7-foot medium heavy type rod. In this situation here, you got some grass that's kind of thick, you got some holes in the grass, you got some patchy stuff. I like to use a 7'4", 7'3" heavy action rod. This is a Pete Pond's Edition white ice ducket fishing rod. It's a 7'3" power heavy. So that gives you enough backbone that you can rip these fish out of the grass, but at the same time you got enough tip that you can whip the bait around and kind of walk it really well. And I like to pair that with a fast reel. This is a Lew's 7-1-1 speed spool inshore BB1. It's a new reel on the market. It's a great reel. It's a strong reel. I like to have a really quick, really strong reel. That way if a fish hits a frog really fast and he takes off, I can catch up to him and get the hook in it. And you can pull them out of this kind of vegetation. All right, and the next thing you want to focus on is your line choice. I like to start, anytime I'm frog fishing, I like to start with a 40-pound braid. It's just a good all-around braid. It's a limber enough braid that you can still work the bait really well, but it's strong enough that you hardly would ever break your line. But you do move up as you move into more of those hydrilla or hyacinth related type frogging patterns where you need like a 65 or even an 80-pound braid. And lastly, you want to make sure you have a good frog. This is a Strike King KVD Sexy Frog. It walks really well. It lands right. It's got a rattle built in. It comes out of the pack basically ready to go. And you want to make sure you have a frog with really good hooks. You see there's a good set of hooks on this frog. I like to bend them up just a little bit, but not much. I mean, these come basically ready to go. I'll trim the skirt a little bit whenever I'm fishing around vegetation just because I don't want the fish to miss the bait or just pull it down by the legs. So that's basically your tackle talk for this type pattern. Kind of want to focus on making sure you have the right line, the right rod, the right reel, and the right frog. And after that, you just go fishing.